The Power Five conferences may not completely own the college football playoff situation in 2016. We bring in Hali Oughton she's a reporter at the American Digital Network to help us out on the American Athletic Conference with the season just a couple weeks or just a couple days away, Hali. So I know we're all excited about that. Thanks so much for jumping on board with us here.
Yeah, I know. We're excited. I can't believe it's already back, but it's the best time of the year. So Thursday can't get here fast enough. So we're excited.
Yes, football is finally here. And when you talk college football, you're talking about the longest off season of any sport. So we have to wait and wait and wait. And then it's finally here. So that's a great thing. This Houston team was extremely impressive last year. Of course, they beat Louisville. They pretty much manhandled Florida State, to a lot of people's surprise, in the Peach Bowl. Your thought about the Cougars coming in? It's pretty obvious that, man, this week one matchup, they dive right into it in regards to a national spotlight game for them and for this conference in regards to making some noise.
Yeah, it's a very exciting matchup and a very interesting way to start off the season. But Tom Herman has handled, I think, this first game of the year as well as the success from last season very well. He is very big on kind of putting what's happened in the past in the rearview mirror. They took the time to celebrate it, but he said at Media Day that these guys are question marks. They haven't proven anything yet this year. He banned all Peach Bowl attire from workouts. And so that's definitely very much last year, and these guys are out there trying to reprove themselves again to build off of that. And playing Oklahoma in week one, everyone's like, is this going to make or break the season? And Tom Herman is just focused on one game at a time. His goal from the very beginning has been to win the American Athletic Conference Championship. Their goal is to win a conference championship every year. And so, you take the Oklahoma game for what it's worth, but the focus has definitely been one game at a time, going 1-0. And he has things plastered all over their locker room to symbolize that. He recently put up a 24-hour countdown clock. A lot of people would think, it's a countdown to the next game clock, but it's actually started 24 hours before that game, and we're only worried about tomorrow and what's going on. So he's done a pretty good job, I think, keeping this team focused, and they just started preparing for Oklahoma last week. So they'll do their best in that game, and he said if they beat Oklahoma, the commissioner isn't going to, meet them out on the 50-yard line at the end of the game and hand them a championship trophy. So there's a lot more to this season than just this Oklahoma game.
Yeah, Hali, I was at Media Day as well in Newport, and pretty much all my questions right out of the gate with each of the Houston players, they pretty much shut me down. Unfortunately, I wanted to talk about the Florida State game. I wanted to talk about momentum leading into this season. They were like, hey, this season, that's over. We got our rings. We got everything we need. We're done with that. It's on to the next day. So that's the mark of a focused team that's focused on winning a championship, and really more so than that, as you put, the next day, the next grind, the next rep. So when we look at some possibilities in regards to challenging this top 15 team in the American, who stands out to you?
You know what? It's going to be a really interesting year. I think right off the bat, USF, they're going to be a really tough team to play. Willie Taggart, they really caught fire at the end of last season. They started off a little bit, I guess, I don't know if shaky is the right word, but the end of the season, they really dominated teams. And I think with the returners they have on both sides of the ball, you have Quentin Flowers at quarterback who found his groove last year, Marlon Mack, who's a really dominant presence and key to their offense on the ground, Rodney Adams at wide receiver, just a really powerful offensive unit, and then quite a few returning starters on defense. So they're going to be a pretty solid unit across the board. And then you look at a team like Temple. A lot of people think that, they lose guys like Tyler Matakevich, Matt Ioannidis, Tavon Young, that their defense will maybe, suffer from those losses. But Matt Rule has done a great job of getting those guys lined up behind them. They sound like they're ready to go on the defensive side. And then offensively, Philip Walker now, he's a 4-year starter at quarterback at Temple. So he brings a lot of experience, and his buddy in the backfield, Jahad Thomas, they played high school football together. So they have built quite a bit of chemistry throughout the past 8 years or so playing together. So they're not going to be easy to go up against either. So I think, USF and Temple out of the East Division. And then you have a team like Cincinnati, who is a very talented team. They just announced their starting quarterback this week, Hayden Moore, but they have 3 guys that have been fighting for that role in the offseason. Obviously, Gunnar Keel, last year's starter, but that team could be a challenge as well, just maybe a little bit more unknown, but I think we'll see here in the next week or two how they're going to be. So out of the East, a lot of talent. And then, you even look in the West, they're going to have to play teams like Tulsa who have shown what they can do offensively, especially last year. Philip Montgomery led an amazing turnaround from a program that only had 2 wins the season before. So the thing for Houston is that they have a tough schedule. They have Oklahoma and Louisville out of conference, but in conference, they are hitting the road to play Cincinnati, Navy, Tulsa, and Memphis all on the road this year. So those won't be easy environments to play in.
Yeah, you mentioned Temple and South Florida out of the gate, and those are 2 teams that have just risen out of the ashes. So Taggart and Rule doing an exceptional job. Temple won 2 games, as you well know, just a few years ago, from 2 to 6 to 10, and taking a team like Notre Dame to the wire at home. And with South Florida, this was an offense that was non-existent just a few years ago, and now you're naming very prolific, dynamic players because they were like almost last in the league in offense just a couple years ago, and the second-rated offense in the conference this past season.